2 more wins. 2 more wins. And the Indiana Fever is headed to the WNBA Finals. Let that sink in for a second.
One player on the court in this entire game looked like the most valuable player in the league, and it wasn't A'ja Wilson.
Against the Las Vegas Aces, beating them 89-73. The Indiana Fever only need to win 2 more games, and they will be in the WNBA Finals, and they stole the first of 3 today. A very convincing win for the Indiana Fever at the Aces in Las Vegas on their home court.
Did the Indiana Fever just break the WNBA script? Everyone said this playoff run was supposed to be Aces versus Liberty in the finals, but Indiana just walked into Vegas and destroyed the defending champs on their own floor. 2 wins away from the finals without Caitlin Clark. This isn't just an upset, it's chaos in the league.
Do you remember a couple days ago on ESPN, they were saying like the chances that the teams had, and they had the Indiana Fever as the lowest chances of winning the WNBA Finals.
But what exactly allowed them to flip the script and expose Vegas? Let's break down how they stunned the entire basketball world. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. Costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
If you hold A'ja to under 20 points in any game, the Aces aren't winning. They just beat the Aces by 16. And the reason they beat the Aces by 16 is because they held A'ja to under 20 points. I think that the Aces should rename their team to the Las Vegas A'jas.
Everyone thought the Aces were untouchable, right? That's what makes this even more shocking. Nobody had Indiana penciled in as the team to bring Vegas to their knees. The defending champs looked too polished, too loaded with star power, and too experienced to be rattled. Meanwhile, Indiana came into this series with people already predicting the broom. Most analysts were calling it a sweep before the first tip. The Fever were written off so quickly that it almost felt like their presence in this matchup was just extra practice for the Aces on their way back to the finals. But instead of rolling over, Indiana showed up like a group that refused to be bullied, and what ended up happening turned the entire narrative of this series upside down. Think about how dominant Las Vegas had been at home. The numbers told the story: blowouts, crowd energy, fast-paced offense flowing through A'ja Wilson. The Aces had this rhythm that looked impossible to crack. So, when the first quarter started and Wilson picked up 2 fouls early, the whole game shifted.
So there's a point in time when A'ja got her 4th foul. So she was in foul trouble and she headed to the bench. Just put on display the biggest weakness with the Las Vegas Aces. By the time A'ja came back into the game, which was just a few minutes later because she had to, the Fever were up by 14 points.
You could feel it. Suddenly, the anchor of Las Vegas defense was anchored to the bench, and Indiana smelled blood in the water. That's when they started pushing the pace. That was the crack in the armor, and once it opened up, the Fever didn't hesitate. Picture this moment. The scoreboard turns after Indiana strings together buckets, and then Mitchell splashes another jumper. Suddenly, it's an 11-0 run. The crowd, usually roaring in Vegas, goes dead silent. You could almost hear the sneakers squeak louder than the fans. Vegas players glanced at each other like they weren't sure what just hit them. Runs happen all the time in basketball, but this one felt different. The Fever weren't just scoring. They were dictating. Indiana wasn't playing scared. They were the ones throwing the punches.
She is still the one who makes the greatest impact, but it's not a sustainable model for the Aces. They can't win with just one player. They went on an 11-0 run to put them up 14 because A'ja was on the bench. That they have a better chance at beating the Aces in a 5-game series than they did to beat the Atlanta Dream in a 3-game series.
And Vegas didn't have an answer. Now, Kelsey Mitchell was the fire starter, dropping 34 points on the defending champs against a perimeter defense that has frustrated so many teams is not some fluke performance. She was fearless. She drove straight into pressure. She pulled up for threes. She cut through their rotations like they weren't even set. It wasn't just volume scoring either. Her baskets always seemed to come in moments that killed Vegas momentum. Every time the Aces looked ready to spark a comeback, Mitchell basically slammed the door with another jumper. That type of confidence is contagious, and you could see her teammates feeding off it. But Mitchell wasn't doing it alone. Odyssey Sims stepped in like the steady hand Indiana didn't even realize they desperately needed.
34 points. One player on this court looked like an MVP in the league, and it did not look like A'ja Wilson. 12 of 23, 34 minutes. 3 assists, 34 points. First player ever to score 30-plus in the playoffs for the Fever since 2012.
Think about it. This is a player who set the table, got people in position, and turned what could have been sloppy possessions into smooth half-court sets. She wasn't just dribbling the clock down, she was organizing them. And that mattered because once Indiana kept their offense flowing, the Aces couldn't speed them up. Vegas thrives when they turn mistakes into fast breaks, but Sims didn't let them have those moments. She gave Indiana balance, and suddenly the underdogs looked composed. Defensively, Indiana turned the screws even tighter. They mixed in that press, and it completely threw Las Vegas out of rhythm. The Aces kept hesitating, second-guessing passes, and forcing shots late in the clock. It was almost shocking to see a team known for fluid offense look this mechanical. Turnovers piled up, and Indiana capitalized by slowing the game whenever they wanted or running out with energy whenever an opening appeared.
Natasha Howard, 12 points. Odyssey Sims threw in 17 points in this game. And Lexi Hull got 6 points and hit a 3, all right?
It felt like the Fever were the ones choosing how the game was played, almost dragging the champions into their world instead of playing on Vegas terms. By the third quarter, it wasn't about luck, it wasn't about Vegas missing shots, it was control. Indiana kept pressing the edges, targeting everyone not named Wilson, and showing that the Aces foundation wasn't nearly as unshakable as the hype suggested. Wilson was still producing, but the Fever refused to let anyone else get comfortable. They stripped confidence away from the roster piece by piece, exposing that one superstar can't carry a team on nights where support disappears. So what's the bigger picture here? Did Indiana just show the game plan for dismantling the champs? Or is this more about a new contender being born right in front of us?
You see this right here. The Fever in the quarter on an 11-0 run. I mean, it was a huge game from Kelsey Mitchell, no doubt about it. And they left that quarter leading by 14.
When you see an underdog step into the defending champion's house, dominate the pace, and silence an entire building, it doesn't feel like an accident. It feels like a statement. And the real question now is, have the Aces cracked, or have the Fever started a whole new era in the league? Indiana just sent a clear message. They aren't only Caitlin Clark's team. This win showed they've got firepower across the roster and enough toughness to break down the defending champions. That matters because the Fever now look like a group with balance instead of leaning on one superstar. If they keep this up and take 2 more wins, it could change how every team in the WNBA builds their roster, putting more value on depth and adaptability. So what do you think? Are the Fever about to shock the league and actually reach the finals? Drop your predictions in the comments.